vaccine mandates. Mandating the vaccine for companies that have over 100 employees and federal employees. Is this necessary? There is a history of this in the U.S. People saying this is unconstitutional. I think need to look up past Supreme Court cases. We're not going to go into all that on this podcast. Guys, make sure you comment if you want us to go into more details about anything that we talked about during this podcast. But quick question. How do you feel about that vaccine mandate, J.K.?
I feel a little iffy about it. I gotta say, Joe Biden has been doing a lot of things like, and I voted for Joe Biden because I was just like, he was like the last on my list of Democrats to vote for in the election. But at the end of the day, it was like, okay, you got this or this. I often tell my friends, it's like, let's say you go to dinner and you find there's two things on the menu, right? Mm-hmm. There's Brussels sprouts and you hate Brussels sprouts. You can't stand Brussels sprouts. And steaming hot dog shit, right? You're going to dinner. You're going to eat something. What are you going to do? Are you going to let everybody else order for you? Especially when a lot of the people at the table happen to like steaming hot dog shit, right? So just to be clear, Joe Biden is Brussels sprouts in this metaphor. So Brussels sprouts has been doing this thing of like just saying wild stuff, man. He did this thing. He said this thing recently. And you and I have talked about it offline a little bit where he was talking. I think they started out talking about vaccine mandates. And then that got, the January 6th people. Well, what do you call them? I've heard a lot of
y'all Qaeda.
Chris Rock, the comedian, went as far as to call him Al Cracker at one time, which I gotta say that was questionable, fairness.
Questionable term right there.
But yeah. What was
Might
the
be
other
accurate.
one? From where did they say they were from? Oh man, hold on. From Saudi Arabia. But anyway, let's just say a lot of people who feel that their freedoms are of utmost importance, right? A lot of times more important than life itself, as I kind of stated earlier. They got upset, and then a lot of these folks, especially the ones who are very pro Second Amendment, got upset, and they've been talking about having an armed insurrection, and because the government is becoming tyrannical, and that's part of their reading of the second interpretation of the Second Amendment, which is that we need the right to bear arms. And when I say we, I got to do some air quotes because I don't know, when I hear we the people, I get like a little nervous because I know I wasn't a people when that was written, so it was like, who are you talking about? We the people.
Yeah.
Do I get
wasn't talking about us at the time. We had to
no. So the phrase "we the people" it sounds threatening. We the people's fuck. We the people coming, But this idea that they need to arm themselves in case the government becomes tyrannical, and Joe Biden saying the thing that you probably shouldn't say out loud. He was like, yo, you got F-14s? You got nuclear bombs? Because that's what we got. Talking about the federal government. So thereby creating a distinction between the federal government and we the people. Oh, man. And they the people freaked out. So I think that Joe Biden, but at the same time, I think that at least he thinks he's doing what is going to preserve life, because you got a lot of people, and if you listen to doctors, that are in emergency rooms and in these hospitals talking about they have a Hippocratic oath and they're being faced with this patient that's going to die on a respirator. And they're like, why didn't you get the vaccine? And they're just like, and they got all these excuses, and they're going to die, you know? And you know what? Because they're dying alone, they don't get to tell their families, hey, I made a mistake. You know, I wish I have a regret that I didn't take the vaccine. It's just like, you know, like a soldier who dies on foreign soil. You don't know if he felt like at the end of his life, if it was worth it, you know, of giving his life for his country. We're never going to know how those people feel because they're dying in isolation. The doctors know, and the doctors are telling people, yo, stop fucking around. You know?
There's even talk about not giving patients ICU beds if they're unvaccinated and dying of COVID, because it takes away an ICU bed that a heart attack victim would need, or a car accident victim would need, or someone else who has a severe lethal illness. And so now when you going into that conversation, I think that gets a little tricky, because then where do you draw the line there? Again, we go back to smoking. If you're suffering from lung cancer, you know, that's something that you caused. Should you get an ICU bed? But of course, the argument goes back to lung cancer is not contagious. COVID-19 is. Getting the vaccine is a choice that is also a free choice. The vaccine in the States is free. You can simply just go to a Walgreens or CVS and just, you know, get the shot. So I understand.
Also keep in mind that I am so old that, like, when I started smoking cigarettes, doctors still thought it was really good for you. They thought it was like a new kind of vitamin. So you got to give me a little bit. You got to give me a little bit of leeway. I'm a lot older than I look.
I know, man. Like you grew up in a time where, you know, they had vitamin cigarettes and cocaine chewing gum.
Let me tell you about the polio vaccine rollout, okay? Because it was also a very divisive time, okay? The Spanish flu, this shit ain't got nothing on a Spanish flu, man. Spanish flu was some hardcore shit.
Oh yeah, but I know you're joking, but yeah, you did have some anti-maskers doing the Spanish flu. Like even during that time, you had people who were definitely on the anti-mask train. But to bring it back to whether or not I believe a vaccine mandate is necessary, I think it is. I think it is. I think one of the problems back home in the U.S. is that there is so much distrust. Some of that distrust is earned. Some of it is because people in power have spread rumors. Celebrities have, you know, said a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense. And the fact that I don't think America is doing a great job in creating open conversation, creating spaces to have conversations in which scientific terms and terminology are discussed, so that everyday people have an understanding of what is actually happening. I just don't think, like, you have, you know, just like you have an ESPN, you should have something like that regarding economics and politics, right? And not where you just have a channel that gives one perspective, but like you have a channel that you have people talking about the facts, but they're giving their takes using those facts to support whatever they're saying, not creating stuff out of thin air or twisting data to serve whatever opinion they have. I feel like because we have these mediums where everyone is just spouting how they feel and not necessarily spouting what is actually happening, it just creates an entire ecosystem of mistrust, and it's hard to fight that, right? We're going to talk about, you know, Joe Rogan and Nicki Minaj in a minute, but I mean, it's
Turner. Are you putting your hat in the NPR ring? Has NPR sent you here to provide us with some nonpartisan wisdom? Get out of here, man. You ain't getting no job in NPR. You want to stay right here doing this podcast with me. NPR don't want you. Being the Ike Turner of co-hosts.
Hey, man,
you ain't nothing without me.
You got to keep your eyes on the prize, man.
Man, make it happen, man. But I think you're absolutely right. Is that you have, people are emotional, man. People are emotional. We are just driven, and we find something that validates our emotions. Oh man, it's just like,
And
talking about Ike and Tina Turner, entire relationships are built off of making bad decisions because they validate our screwed up emotions,
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the facts, the facts are the vaccines, from the evidence we have, from the data we have, statistically, they're safe, right? Pfizer has a 91% efficacy rate against COVID, 95 against severe disease. It's also 95 for Moderna, 86% for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine against severe disease. And AstraZeneca has a 76% rate, efficacy rate against the virus, although that's a little bit lower against the Delta variant. According to Yale Medicine, 100%. That's if you get the second dose against against severe symptoms and hospitalization. So looking at the data.
But do you know what the other side of that is, though, sir?
What's the other side?
I'm sorry to interrupt. But who paid for these studies? You know what I mean? Who pays for Yale? You know what I mean? Like where are you getting these studies from? You know what I mean? So that it becomes, and that's the thing that we're saying about the distrust is so deep that it's like, if somebody is against vaccines and they see a little, they have these things on social media now, which is like a warning saying that this is potentially misinformation, or the source of this information is a source of a lot of other misinformation. Mm-hmm. There's some people who are get more drawn to, because they're like, who are these people telling me I can? It's like when you're watching, if you're watching a movie or a video, and they'd be like, parental discretion is advised, or this might be disturbing to watch. And some people be like, ooh, all right, let me get my popcorn. Let me check out something disturbing. Ooh, I want to see something disturbing. What's this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like when you tell someone not to do something and it makes them more likely to do it.
But that was so succinct. Thank you.
And yes, you should look into who funds the studies, right? Because we saw this with a lot of those studies that said that fat was the culprit. For many years, you had companies that were labeling their foods low fat because they, paid for these studies to point at fat as being the culprit for obesity, rather than, it being what we all knew it to be, sugar, the high amounts of sugar that's been put into everything, and high fructose corn syrup. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. Look into who is funding the studies, who's backing the studies, who do these studies benefit. But at the same time, obviously with these vaccines, everybody is taking them. And I feel like I feel a lot more strongly about this being in Vietnam, seeing people die for the virus who actually are trying to get the vaccine, who want the vaccine, people who can't get it, people who are going to have to choose Sinopharm or the Sputnik vaccine, Sputnik being from Russia, Sinopharm from China, which don't have the same trust behind them.
Sinopharm is like, I mean, we won't get too into it in this podcast, but Vietnam distrusting the Chinese is goddamn near a tradition. I won't even say even near. It is culturally
embedded. A pastime.
It's a pastime. Sinopharm.
Is that from China? Nah.
I'm supposed to take some medicine from these people who trying to kill me. You crazy? You know what I mean? Which again, you can't take people's historical context away from them. You can't really, But I'll tell you another thing, though. I got some Vietnamese friends that are not playing with these foreigners that don't want to take the vaccine. They're just like, yo, you need to stop playing with us and take it or get out.
Yeah.
Because you have, you're talking about some people that live in impoverished conditions that don't have access to healthcare, that cannot make any money in this time that we're being locked down. And the idea that some foreigner can be walking around spreading the disease that is keeping people locked up and away from making money is like, nah, you got to get the fuck out of here with that. I know a lot of Vietnamese people that feel that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like living in this situation, going through the pandemic here in Vietnam, like you look at America with a lot more, what's the word? I'm trying to choose
side
the right
eye.
word.
Like, what is he doing?
There's a lot more side eyeing. Like, you guys don't know how good you have it.
Y'all waited how long for a vaccine? Y'all were dying for a vaccine, and now how many of you don't want to take it? You know what I mean?
And how many
y'all waited
because of that, right? The amount of people who are dying because they're not taking the vaccine. So yeah, I look at the mistrust, and as much as I sympathize with it and sympathize with those who are hesitant, I also say a mandate is absolutely 100% necessary at this point.